Hello and welcome to SMPD, the podcast where we look back at the cartoons that shaped our childhood. I am Chris Bolton. With me, as always, my partner in podcasting, Mr. Mark Williams.
Hello.
And this episode, we are looking back at Cow and Chicken, or, as I like to call it, Not Ren and Stimpy. Make of that what you will.
Yeah, I prefer to call it lunch, but yeah.
Well, yeah, there's that as well, I guess. I mean, first and foremost, one of the first things, this never occurred to me when originally watching the show, and we'll get into our histories with it as we go through the episode. I didn't watch this extensively, to be honest. So I know what it is, know of it, saw it back in the day and stuff. But the very first thing that occurred to me when watching it for this is, why is it called Cow and Chicken? Because it's not a chicken, is it?
It's some form of hybrid chicken alien thing.
Well, no, they're a cow and a rooster, basically. Because the cow is a cow because it's not bull and chicken. Shit. Yeah, no, but it's not bull and chicken, is it?
No.
It's cow and chicken. So surely the chicken should also be a female and they should both be sisters.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not the weirdest thing in this show by any stretch of the imagination, but it's just something that has bugged me a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, I do like the way that they put it right up on Front Street in the credits, where it's like, no, Mama had a cow, Mama had a chicken. So what? Just get on with it. It's like there's no need for explanation. It's just like, well, fuck it, that's what happened. So that's how we're getting past that. Nobody's going to ask because we've said, don't know how. So tough.
I mean, it is kind of insinuated that there has been bestiality, though, isn't it? Because you've got the whole thing of, Dad was proud. He didn't ask how, as if like he knows something's wrong, but you just gotta let it go. I mean, it's the fact
punches, don't you?
I mean, it's a cow and a chicken as well. So
and they're age different. There's a couple of years age difference between them as well.
Is there right? I did.
Yeah, I think chicken is supposed to be 11 and cow is supposed to be 7.
Jesus, I could make no discernible kind of narrative out of any of the episodes I watched.
No, I couldn't either. I mean, I've only got that from reading. I mean, you can tell from the way they speak and so the way their characters sort of behave that you can tell that one is definitely considerably older than the other. But no, the fact that one's 11 and one's 7, I've only got through reading it. I didn't get that from the show.
I would not have picked up on that at all because, like, whenever you see them in school, they I just assumed they were in the same class and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't get to see enough of it this time around to really dwell on it too much. I think because they're only in sort of 6 or 7 minute skits, aren't they? So I think I watched about half a dozen of those, just to get a flavour of it. I mean, I did watch this when it first came on. So it came out in '97 in the US on Cartoon Network, and then it appeared here. It was on SMTV in about 1998, which would have been just about the time. Sort of Saturday mornings, I'd be getting up with a hangover. And like, well, fuck it, I'm watching cartoons, so bollocks to everybody. And this was one of the ones that came along, and there was another section to it as well. So you had 2 of these skits and a third skit, which is about 5 minutes, called I Am Weasel.
Yeah, we'll get into that at the end as well. And actually, I've just, before we go any further, I've got to apologize. I've just yawned twice, and there's a third one coming. So sorry if you're on video. I'm not bored. I am just really fucking tired tonight. Okay, for reasons. I haven't properly slept since Saturday, so I'm running on very little sleep, and I just cannot help myself. I'm sorry. So I'm fully here, guys. As much as I can be here on not having slept for like 3 days, I'm fully here. I'm yawning because I can't help it. So don't take that as any kind of reflection on the subject matter. So you're right. It was on SMPD, SMTV. Sorry, SMPD is us. Tired again. Tired, guys. Okay. So I remember as well seeing it on Saturday morning. I remember it actually more than I remember the show. I remember me and my social group at this time, we all would have been rapidly approaching our early 20s, using it as a weird call and response greeting, particularly in the pub. I don't know why, but there was very much a thing between us of cow, chicken, and I don't know how or why that happened.
We had the same thing.
That is one of the main things. It was a bit like Marco Polo. That was one of the main things I remember about this show was our just weird call and response whenever somebody showed up to the pub. Cow, chicken.
There were about 4 or 5 of us in our group, and we used to do the same. And I've not spoke to anybody since we ever used to do that. So that's quite funny.
Weirdly, I never knew anybody else did it either. I thought it was just us being fucking weirdos because
Oh
we
yeah.
were. So not ashamed of it. But yeah, it wasn't that I didn't watch it. It was just something that was on. Like this wasn't a show that I was like, oh, I've got to watch Count Chicken. But as you said, tended to be on a Saturday morning, so I tended to be a little bit worse for wear. And how the hell, like I guess this is one of those shows where, particularly when you're at the age I was at then, as I say, rapidly approaching the end of my teens, moving into my 20s. It's one of those things where I guess it's hitting the sweet spot. So that's probably why, as a group, we will let it like letting it wash over us. Because I'll be honest, I have, and again, lack of sleep has probably factored into this, but I've been watching it for a week and a half now, ready for the show, and I have found this difficult to sit through just one like 7 minute segment. How the hell I could have done it with a hangover is beyond me, because this thing is a fucking onslaught.
Yeah,
Like,
I was going to say. I mean, between the pace of it, the color palette as well. The color palette is fucking mental.
It looks. I gotta be honest. It looks horrendous.
Yeah.
I really do not like the way this looks. Nothing wrong with the animation, but just
Yeah,
it looks
the
awful.
coloration, the character design, it's all really fucking weird.
Yeah, it's really fucking odd. So I don't know who put this on the list. I don't know if it was me or you,
I
but
can't remember.
I was I was interested to rewatch it just because it was a show that how should I say? I can't say I really loved first time out, but I didn't hate either. It was just something that was on and had some sort of weird cultural impact amongst my friend group, where we were just like calling each other out on it. And I'm not sure that any of us actually really liked it. It was just
It was
something
just
that
there.
was on, and it was immature enough that we liked it in our hungover state. But yeah, I mean, we've touched on the color palette. I mean, look, I don't want this to turn into a drubbing, because I can't say that I didn't enjoy the show, but fuck me, it really is just a poor man's Ren and Stimpy, isn't it? I'm sorry, but I'm just going to put it on Front Street. Like, I feel like everything that Ren and Stimpy does right, this does so wrong. I mean, to start with, yeah, the pacing is all over the shop. And look, Ren and Stimpy is fucking zany and wacky and goes to all sorts of weird places. But it's really well written and really well paced. You know, you occasionally in Ren and Stimpy, you get those extreme kind of close-up art cards that they would put in, where it's just still life, and it just gives you that chance to go, okay, just a minute.
Yeah,
and
just
then it's
slow
also,
down and give you a chance to start again.
And it's also not in these just. I mean, I don't know how this didn't break TVs. Like the saturation on this thing. Ren and Stimpy isn't in those weird bleeding primary colors that this is either. So it hurt to look at. Yes, it's very fast. I will say, like, the voice talent is like, I mean, it's Charlie Adler show, but it's incredible. Like, to listen to, I could sit down and listen to it all day. I think the voice work is amazing.
Yeah,
but it just fucking hurts to try and watch.
Yeah, like, I mean, I watched, I think probably about half a dozen of the 5-6 minute skits, and yeah, they just move along. I mean, they did have ones which were slightly more madcap than others. I mean, the first one I watched, Cow gets a job at a milk factory where she's being milked all day. And
I have literally just watched that before recording, minutes ago.
Yeah, so I mean, mainly because that was the first one that came up when I searched. But you had that one, and then sort of you get the flip side of that, where they don't want. Bizarrely, the guy rejects chicken milk because do chickens produce milk? I don't fucking know.
Look, hold that thought. Yeah, yeah.
So we get that, and then so you get these ones which are slightly they are slightly story driven, and then so you get the whole thing of him to the sense of the chicken farm where he's going to be turned into food, and Cow becomes super cow to save the day. So you get a sort of story there, but then there's another one where Cow, they're watching TV and Cow is being annoying by licking chicken, and her tongue breaks in half. Yeah, I know. But yeah, like her tongue snaps off and makes a run for it and steals a motorbike and fucks off into the sunset. So you get these really fucking bizarre ones as well.
Now, see that I didn't watch that one, but that is kind of what I remembered about the show, and that is definitely the kind of shit that me and my friend group back then would have fucking loved, because that kind of just stupid, insane humor.
Yeah,
I mean, look, it's a taste. You either like it or you don't. And we've always liked that, and I certainly have always liked that. But I think one of the look, I've already said it. We can't get away from it. Like, this really clearly wants to be a Nicktoon, and
Yes.
even more clearly wants to be Ren and Stimpy.
Yeah.
Now, whatever you think of John K, like, well, we covered this on our Ren and Stimpy show. Okay, that cartoon is exceptional, and it is exceptional for a number of reasons. One of which is that for all everybody, like, if you haven't seen that show in a long time, the first thing you're going to think is, oh, it was gross and it was weird and it was out there, and yes, it was all of those things.
Yeah.
But it was also very intricately plotted, and yes, it was insane, but it was insane in a structured way. Everything made sense. Whereas this is literally just throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. It kind of feels like Ren and Stimpy via Looney Tunes.
Yeah, I was going to say it's got a sort of Animaniacs sort of feel to it, which is just it's slightly too fast, slightly too frenetic. It's slightly too much going on for what you're trying to do, and it just. I mean, I don't remember we did Animaniacs way back on this show, and it's one of those I still love, but it relied more on gags than the overall product.
And that's what we get here as well. But I think the difference is, again, with both Ren and Stimpy and Animaniacs as well, is that neither of those were actually, even though you remember those characters, they weren't character-driven shows.
Yeah.
There was always a narrative in each episode, whatever that may be. Whereas with this, it feels more like that kind of Looney Tunes, or even, you know, early Disney Mickey Mouse shorts, where it's cow and chicken are just a cow and a chicken, and we're going to be led by these characters. We don't care about the story. Here's just these characters doing a bunch of just random funny shit.
Yeah.
And occasionally that works. Things like, I was just giggling at the tongue riding off on the motorbike because cow had been licking chicken. So if I'd have watched that would have made me laugh. But the problem is, when you're being that random, for every hit, there's going to be 3 misses. Yeah. And, you know, of these episodes I've watched, there have been a few times where I have laughed out loud at this. And I've found them difficult to look at and follow, but I've always kind of gone in for another one. As I said, I was watching it right until we were recording, because I was on a little bit before you this evening, so I had some time to kill. Yeah. So I started watching it. But it is just throughout, I find it very inconsistent. You know, for every hit, there is a miss. Even character-wise as well. For every, like, I actually think Cow and Chicken are great characters, and that's largely down to the voice work more than the design or anything like that. You know, I think, you know, Cow's got that kind of weird, kind of almost baby doll voice, and then Chicken is basically John Travolta, as far as I can tell. It's just John Travolta impersonation with a bad attitude, which is like, and I like, you know, I like the fact that they are Ren and Stimpy. You know, you've got the simpleton and you've got just a little ball of rage. I can't stop drawing that comparison. I'm sorry, it's so obvious and it's so just there for the taking. And that does hurt this show. It's as simple as that. You know, there is no way you can compare. And there are very few things you could, in my view anyway, you could compare to Ren and Stimpy, and that wouldn't hurt them. I think that show was a masterpiece, as I said, you know, when we did the show on that. You know, removing the artist from it. But I do think it's a section.
That's the thing, though. I mean, everything I've read coming up to this, I mean, so it has the look and the feel of a Nicktoon, just without the quality. It was Cartoon Network as part of their What Cartoon series, and then it spun out of that. Produced by Hanna-Barbera as well, so there's quality to it. But I think it's everything you read just comes back to comparisons of Ren and Stimpy, and there's no getting away from it, because it's, even though, I mean, if it was a Nicktoon, you could argue that they're trying to recreate something, or they're trying to live up past glories or anything else. Because it's different, you think, well, hang on, is this just a poor man's knockoff? And I think that's probably unfair to David Feiss. I think he had a product. I think it was popular enough because it started off. It was in a cartoon anthology in about '95, and people wrote in asking for more, basically, which is when Hanna-Barbera picked it up. So I mean, there's obviously love for it. There was obviously something that people wanted, and the fact it then ran for 50+ episodes, again, didn't quite hit the sweet spot of 64 for syndication, but it did well enough, and it's been repeated over the years pretty much everywhere. So I mean, if it wasn't so similar to Ren and Stimpy, I think it would be a lot better received, and I think you'd be able to look at it and go, right, okay, well, it's doing what it's doing, and even if there are similarities to other things, it's not the same. It's its own thing, and I think that would help you look at it more favorably. The problem is because it is so similar, and
really is.
time-wise, we're not that far removed either.
No, we're not.
It's very difficult to separate the two.
Yeah, I think we are actually weirdly just far enough removed that, like, and I've compared a lot of things to those early Nicktoons before as well, and that is because, you know, just simply with the age I am, they were lightning in a bottle. Okay, they were first out of the gate. They were the first shows of their kind, really, and they just hit the zeitgeist of where we were as sort of pre-teens in the 90s. We had, for all we joke about it, and we do joke about it all the time in the show, you know, we were the extreme generation in the 90s. Everything was about just more. We want it now as much as possible. Just throw it in my face, make it as gross as you can, make it as ugly as you can in some cases. Just give us more. And first time out, that was fine. And as I said, what we actually had as well, particularly with the Nicktoons, was actually controlled. It wasn't just thrown up against the wall. Whereas I think enough time had passed by the time we got here that to try and capture that lightning in a bottle again, like, I'm older now, and this has skewed older with me. I definitely think this skews older even than Ren and Stimpy. This is not a cartoon for children. It might look like it, but it's not. And I think in doing that, it's lost some of the magic, because part of the sheer joy of Ren and Stimpy was in its innocence. Like, it got away with murder and it absolutely trod right on the line. But it always stayed the right side of the line. Whereas here, like we said, in the opening credits, they're flat out talking about bestiality. There's no two ways around it. The amount of cum jokes I've picked up, like,
I thought that was me, I've got to be honest.
No. They are, like, they're blatant. And again, that is the problem. Look, that sort of shit is there in Ren and Stimpy. It absolutely is. But again, the writing is more intelligent. It's better hidden. And so it's the kind of thing that, yes, as a kid, you can watch Ren and Stimpy and it's too violent for you and it's too gross for you. So it feels naughty that you're watching it. But then as an adult, you can appreciate the subtlety in it. But it's still got that kind of childhood charm. Whereas this is just literally just thrown at your eyeballs. And it's just so in your face. And I think it came about 5 years too late for that.
Yeah, it did. And I mean, we'll come on to it there, because there are a couple of controversies around Cow and Chicken anyway. It nearly got cancelled.
Oh, okay.
So
I've done no research as usual.
The first time, there's an episode in the second season called, or a skit, a 5-minute skit called Buffalo Girls.
I do know about this.
Sorry,
I haven't researched it, but I do know about this.
So Buffalo Girls were depicted as like a Hells Angels type gang, all women, and they invaded people's homes and ate their carpets. So that elicited a single complaint to Cartoon Network, at which point, because about negative stereotypes of lesbians, and so Cartoon Network pulled it. They pulled the episode and they almost pulled the whole show.
But that's exactly what I'm talking about. And that is the kind of thing, actually, that maybe 5 years earlier, Ren and Stimpy would have got away with. And it would have been that as well. They would have been, they probably wouldn't have gone as far as carpet munchers. Right? Yeah. They probably would have been, I don't know, rug eaters or something like that. Yeah. They would have changed it just enough from a rug muncher to
and there were things
to get it through. But
it wasn't just the fact that that was the way it was set up. And obviously the gag is they come in and eat the carpets of people's houses, but they doubled down on it. It was like the father's like, oh, we're being invaded, and the mother says, oh, don't worry, they're not coming for you. And again, it's just turning them into some sort of lesbian cult. So it listed a single complaint apparently, which then caused Cartoon Network to go, oh fuck, right, I can't have that. The second time it almost got cancelled, and this is slightly less worrying. But there's an episode, I can't remember what it's called, where they're playing golf, and the father shanks it, and he says, "Oh God damn it!" And obviously can't say things like that on kids' TV.
Oh shit!
So again, it was very close. When it was broadcast the first time, it was fucking pandemonium. And then when it was broadcast anytime after that, it was and then it was cut.
And that's nuts, isn't it? When this is a show that quite literally features the devil in every episode.
Exactly. But
like, they don't call him the devil, they don't call him Satan because they can't. He's the red guy, but he is very clearly the devil. But you can't say God damn it. Oh no.
I mean, even to the point, if he just said "damn it," that would have been probably acceptable. But because God damn it, that's it.
And I think that definitely comes through to me in watching this show, is that every time it's like they've definitely tried to pitch for Ren and Stimpy, and they have completely missed the point of everything that made it so good, because they've been that blatant with it. They've gone, oh yeah, we can swear, fuck it, why not? Yeah,
why not?
Cum jokes, yeah, why not? Jokes about lesbians, yeah, why not? Look, this isn't fucking South Park. All right.
Yeah. I mean, ironically, this was about the same time as South Park.
I was going to say it was about the same time, and so again, there's comparison there as well. You know, if you're not going to go and compare it to what is essentially a children's show in Ren and Stimpy, too good for children by far, but essentially it pitched as a children's show.
Yeah.
Then you go the other end and go, okay, well, this is an adult cartoon. This belongs on Comedy Central or Adult Swim or something like that, and then it doesn't go far enough. So it's kind of caught in this weird no man's land where it's just too blunt and on the nose for kids.
Yeah,
but it's just weird.
It is, but I mean, I've got a link here. It's on a website called Pop Buzz, which I've just found through searching cow and chicken on Google. And there's an article called entitled 13 Times Cow and Chicken Were a Complete Disgrace, But We Loved It Anyway. And it's highlighted basically all the things that were entirely inappropriate about it. So the fact that Cow was always rubbing her udders.
Yeah, there's loads of jokes around her.
The fact that chicken is always very close to cow's arse.
Mm-hmm.
Where else we got? The fact that the red guy's constantly, his arse is more prominent than his face.
Constantly, there are butts everywhere.
Yeah,
like everywhere. And again, that's a Ren and Stimpy thing. There are butts everywhere in Ren and Stimpy.
Yeah,
and you can't help but draw that comparison when you see them.
Yeah, like this entire list, it's basically butt jokes. But then there's one where they're in the back. It's a gif within the back of the car, and it's not entirely clear from the way that Cow's hand is inside the seatbelt. It's not entirely clear that she isn't jacking it. She's not playing with her udders. I'll send you a link to it. It's fucking ridiculous. And then you've got, I mean, the whole Buffalo Ghost thing is listed on here quite a lot. But there's also Happy Meat, the pork butts and tatters, and it's just none of it's appropriate. But it's not pitched in the right way. I mean, the fact this was shown at fucking 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning. It's in this country. I mean, it's prime fucking kids fodder.
It's neither subversive enough to be intelligent or blatant enough to be juvenile. It's this weird middle ground where it actually just leaves me going, what the fuck am I watching? And I've no doubt there is and it's probably me, and like, I'm not saying I dislike it, but I'm not a fan then. And I think there are probably more people out there that are fans than aren't. I just think there must be some sort of weird thing that you need to dial into with this that I just don't have. Maybe I was the wrong age when it first came out, and I'm certainly the wrong age now, because watching it now as an adult, like I said, it just hurts my fucking eyes. Like I couldn't watch. I at no point did I watch a whole 30-minute episode.
No.
Just in order to get some of the, because I remembered there was I Am Weasel at the back of it, but I had to go back and fast forward to some I Am Weasel segments because I couldn't sit through enough Cow and Chicken in one sitting to get to I Am Weasel. So I had to fast forward to that. That, by the way, is one of the worst cartoons I've ever seen. I fucking hate I Am Weasel.
I was going to say I didn't look at it this time. I'd forgotten it was on Cow and Chicken until I was reading about it yesterday, and then I didn't have time to look for it. But I remember at the time thinking it was fucking horrendous. It felt like filler.
Yeah, it does feel like filler.
It just feels like they're trying to fill up the episode slot, but they don't really have anything to say. No. So they've just gone, let's make a two-dimensional character and just really shit on him from a great height. And it's one of those. I mean, I don't remember a great deal about it because it's that memorable, and it made that much of an impact on me. But yeah, it's just one of those. It kind of sums up the product that Cow and Chicken isn't the worst part of Cow and Chicken.
No, I mean, actually, Weasel as a character, I don't mind, and I think the voice work is again excellent for Weasel. It's more the fact that a large part of the show centers around it's a baboon instead, isn't it? It's I Am Weasel and I Are Baboon. Yeah. And again, like and they're trying to do something with it, I know, but they give the baboon his own kind of weird speech pattern to signify that he's a baboon. So he's just like, he's got your typical monkey thing where his syntax is all wrong and things like that. It's quite tropey. But when when you add that to his voice as well, it's just difficult to listen to. Like it's to the point where I'm just like, oh, it's fucking just speaking English. Like he doesn't have to speak like this. This isn't funny.
Yeah.
This is just annoying. You know, it's kind of like Yoda, but less cute.
Yeah.
And it just annoys the piss out of me. So I didn't even make it through one single I Am Weasel segment. I tried 4, couldn't make it through any of them.
Yeah, let's say. I mean, I remember I Am Weasel. I didn't look at this time because I remember not liking it in the first place.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a bizarre one. I mean, that said, I googled cow and chicken earlier on, and I made the mistake of writing "and" as opposed to putting an ampersand in, and I found something on Google which linked to YouTube, which is even worse than cow and chicken.
Wow.
Okay, so it's a Ghanaian TV show called Cow and Chicken.
Okay.
And the only description I can find, it's a Ghanaian drama and comic TV series produced and directed by Benson Ohen Oduru Boateng, also known as Funny Face. And there's everything you read. I can't actually find a description of it anywhere, right? So all you find is the soundbite that you had from the press build-up was 2 Ghanaian comic actors, Funny Face and Bismarck Odoye, formerly known as Bismarck the Joke, have teamed up as lead characters for an upcoming comedy series entitled Cow and Chicken. The comedy drama series will showcase an unpredictable story expected to take television viewers by surprise. So that sounds bad enough anyway.
But that sounds amazingly bad.
Yeah, but you look for it, and there's a link on Google which goes to a YouTube page that's been pulled down because Warner Brothers have done them for copyright. And then on the back of that, there's a trailer, which I'll put a link to. I won't be able to put it in our thing because YouTube will probably take it down, but I'll put a link to it in the blurb. And the long and the short of it, I don't speak whichever African language it is that they're speaking, so I don't understand what the fuck is going on, apart from the fact they steal a ginger goat.
A ginger goat?
Yeah. No, what the fuck that has to do with cows or chickens, I don't know, but they steal a ginger goat.
I didn't even know there was such a thing.
Neither did I.
I mean,
there is.
Maybe there isn't. Maybe I'm just ignorant about goats. I don't know. But I didn't realize a ginger goat was a thing.
But yeah, so
I like goats.
They steal a ginger goat, and then there's lots of clips of them sort of hiding around corners, trying to sort of sneak up on this goat to steal it in the first place. And then there's people talking, but I don't understand what they're saying. And it's a really frenetically paced trailer. It looks fucking bonkers. I just can't find the actual thing. Sounds amazing.
Again, my sense of humor, all they need in this trailer is that at some point they scare the goat and he does the whole go rigid thing and fall on his side. I'm in. I'll be laughing for 10 minutes straight. I think
that may happen. I don't know.
I think goats are fucking hilarious. Honestly, they climb trees, they get stuck, they fall on their side and go rigid. I think goats are fucking hilarious. So I'm in. That's all they need to do. If they scare a goat and it goes rigid, they got.
If we can find it, maybe we'll do it on Better Than Mario.
Yeah, we definitely should. So
yeah, I mean, I was taken by surprise. I saw that. I was like, what the fuck is that? And I was thinking maybe it was like an adaptation or a translation or something. And then no, it's 2 African guys, one in for some reason in a US flag bandana, because they're so common in Central Africa. But yeah, and yeah, you start off by them stalking this goat, and then one of them picks up and runs with it. Literally, just fucking picks up things over his shoulders and runs with it. More entertaining than fucking cow and chicken, though.
Yeah, you already had me when you mentioned the producer was called Funny Face. Like, yeah, that does sound more entertaining than cow and chicken. I mean, it's weird, isn't it, to think that, to get back to Cow and Chicken, the animated show. I think what's really weird about it, and actually quite disappointing for me, is we've talked before when we've done the Cartoon Network shows, Powerpuff Girls aside, when we've talked about things like Johnny Bravo and stuff like that, I've mentioned how I was never really a Cartoon Network guy because I was never a big Hanna-Barbera guy anyway, and Hanna-Barbera a lot of this stuff. But I think more specifically, it was probably Cow and Chicken and the likes of Ed, and Eddie that I was just looking at going, this just looks horrible. This just looks like they're trying to ape the stuff I liked 5 years ago and not doing it. I think, there were a lot of Cartoon Network shows that I liked but didn't watch on Cartoon Network despite having access to it. And I look back now and actually feel a little bit sad about that, because I could have been watching a hell of a lot of Johnny Bravo, Powerpuff Girls, and Dexter's Lab, and just ignoring the rest of this shit. But that was the reason I would watch Dexter whenever it was on. Again, that was on ITV. Powerpuff Girls I've already spoken about at length, and Johnny Bravo I kind of more discovered through doing the pod. I was always aware of it, as I say, but I watched a hell of a lot of it for the pod, and absolutely adore it now. So I'm not going to blame Cow and Chicken for that, but I definitely think this kind of gave me a false impression of Cartoon Network, because it was just so in your face, and still is. And I just don't think, I think we as a society, that's a fucking wanky thing to say, but I think we as a society and a culture have moved past that now. That was the 90s. And by the time this came about, we were sort of dipping into the 2000s. And actually, we were starting to get these sort of massive, we were kind of going back 20 years to what we're getting in the 80s and getting these massive multi-part animated epics with huge story arcs, and actually anime was starting to become slightly more mainstream. We were getting things like Pokemon that was going on for seasons and seasons. So to then get this weird kind of almost time capsule type thing where it's a very specific, like early 90s, it's got, you hit the nail on the head, it's got that kind of Animaniacs or maybe Tiny Toon Adventures or Tasmania kind of feel to it, where it's these kind of Looney Tunes reinvented sort of thing, tagged with the kind of Ren and Stimpy gross out humor. And it's just like, I could see all the component parts, and I like all the component parts, I loved them in fact, but when you reassemble them this way, you make this fucking really ugly Frankenstein's monster that I occasionally appreciate, but more often than not, just go, oh my God, this is painful. And it has been painful to watch this. There are very few shows that we've watched where, even when they're bad, and I'm going to say it again, I don't think this is bad. Like the quality that's gone into it in terms of, even though it doesn't look good, I don't like the art design. Like, there's nothing wrong with the animation. There's nothing wrong with the voice work. Some of the gags are really funny. Okay, so it's not just out and out bad. It's just that all of these component parts reassembled just don't work. It's less than the sum of its parts, is what I'm trying to say. I think massively so. I've just found it painful trying to sit through this. Even when we're watching, that's where I was going with this. I got so tired, I went totally off track. I forgot what I was saying. Even when we get the fucking shows, you'd swear I've been smoking. I haven't. Even when we get the shows that we dislike, and I'm thinking back to things like Raccoons. There are very few shows that we out and out dislike, but things like Raccoons and Raggy Dolls, don't come at me, you know who you are. Even when we get those, I'm still able to sit down and watch them and make it through them and get something out of them, and then we can critically appraise them properly. And that's kind of the whole point of the show, is to revisit them. But I have found this a real struggle, like physically hard, to just sit down and watch it, because you got this thing again in the late 90s and early 2000s where and Pokemon was one that got the blame level square at it, where kids were sort of starting to have seizures and stuff because of the amount of flashing images and vibrant bright colors that were in cartoons. And you can't help but think of that when you watch an episode of this and think, you can kind of see how this is going to set someone off, because this literally is like the writer's room. They must have just been handing fucking Adderall around, just like,
they must be high as balls on this one.
Just like, it's all over the fucking shop.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to be honest. I mean, I remember this from first time around watching it on SMTV. We didn't have Sky, so we had 5 channels at that point. One was Channel 5, so it was like wall-to-wall porn. Before it went downhill. Then
now known as TikTok.
So I mean, I remember it first time around, and say it was at that sort of time where I was probably old enough to know better. The jokes were landing, and I did find it quite entertaining. I didn't really pay much attention to things like the color palette and stuff. It wasn't really on my radar. It was something that I could watch that I didn't have to think about. They were in short enough bursts I could just about follow it while I was completely off my face. So it worked. And then I hadn't seen it again since. And it's only, as I think I put this on the list, but I can't remember. Similarly to you, I was curious to see how it stacked up, because I didn't remember it being a Cartoon Network show. I just remembered it being of this sort of time. And because I didn't have the channel, I didn't really know where things fit anyway. but on SMTV, you had around about the same time. You had this. You had Angry Beavers. You had Dexter's Lab. So there were lots of things that were kind of had similar sort of feel to them. I think Angry Beavers was Nick, wasn't it? From memory.
Do you know, I never really watched Angry Beavers. I know of it, but I've got
Yeah,
a feeling,
I remember watching it at the time, but I don't remember.
I think it is Cartoon Network, but I never watched it.
But yeah, so when yeah, I mean, I had enough. I had enough some nostalgia for it. Think, okay, this isn't going to be too painful, and putting it on again. Some of the gags are quite funny.
Mm-hmm.
But
it was Nickelodeon.
It was, yeah. I've just put it now. It was Nick, which the cat from Sabrina produced it. It was Nick Bakay, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Salem.
Yeah, yeah. So he produced it. But yeah, so I mean, I had enough memory of this show to think, oh, this will be okay. And coming into it, I've watched it. I say some of the gags have landed. Some of them you've gone, how'd you get away with that? And then realizing actually they didn't. And to be honest, seeing other stuff that was on SMTV at the time, it was probably edited to fuck as well. It probably cut right down.
I mean, it had to be, didn't it? Surely.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have any copies of any episodes of SMTV to refer back to, but I would imagine they'd had to cut the shit out of it just to get it on TV at that time of the morning. Which I think would have probably been to its detriment as well, because you need a lot of what's there.
You do. I mean, again, when you compare it, I really wish we could stop doing it, but you can't talk about this show without talking about Ren and Stimpy.
No, you can't.
When you compare it to Ren and Stimpy, when that first aired over here, it was going out at like 6:30 at night on BBC Two, and it was still being edited.
Yeah.
Like, because it was so close to the fucking wire. So for this to go out at 10 a.m. And like I say, you can look back at Ren and Stimpy now, and it is very clearly like a kid's show with adult sensibility, whereas this, I feel, is the exact opposite.
Yeah,
it's an adult show that's been pitched to children.
It's been pitched to children, but it's the content is aimed at probably that sort of 16 to 24 demographic.
It definitely is, and I think were it to be made now, I think you could probably get away with it again. You could put it on something like Adult Swim, or you could put it on
Fox later with Family Guy and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I still couldn't be the fucking assault on your senses that it is, but I think we'd be more willing to accept the show that it is now. I think we'd be more conditioned into that kind of adult animation. Like I said, we have Family Guy, we have South Park. Even things like when you look at Rick and Morty and stuff like that, it's got a very similar kind of humor to Rick and Morty, actually. But then again, Rick and Morty is so much more intelligent in its writing. In fact, I'd argue it's one of the best written shows currently on TV.
I agree with that.
It's like people write it off as being a stupid random show, and it really isn't. The level of continuity that goes into that, and the level of thought, and actually the level of emotive response they can get out of you for those characters is amazing. And there is none of that here, but there could be. There's just not. Which is where it really falls down, because as I say, the characterization from the voice, it all comes through. It's absolutely top-notch work. It's just that there's no, because it's so random, because every week is just, it's twice a week, every week is just a collection of skits. There's no involvement, is there? You know, and it's like, even when you look at, like, I've drawn the comparison to Looney Tunes, and even when you look at that, and it's definitely got that kind of zany, wacky feel to it, and especially the recurring characters, like, the red guy and stuff being this kind of recurring antagonist, a bit kind of Elmer Fudd or Yosemite Sam or something like that. But even when you look at a Bugs or a Daffy short or something like that, like, they still have a very clear, specific beginning, middle, and end. It's just a different thing every time, and they cast them in different roles. Whereas here, they still kind of cast Cow and Chicken in the same role every week. All right, occasionally we'll get Super Cow or something like that, but they're still just two kids who go to school, and here's a bunch of problems. And again, that feels like what they've tried to do is take that Looney Tunes kind of style and apply it onto what Nick were doing with shows like, and again, Charlie Adler's in this, so it shows like Real Monsters and Hey Arnold and Rugrats, where it was more situational comedy based. And it feels like they kind of want to do that with the characters, but in the writing, the show's just gone, no, just kick him in the nuts. Kick him in the nuts again. Now make him stick to his ass. Now let's have a cum joke. Now,
the writing surprises me, actually. There are some very prominent people on that list. And you've got Bill Burnett, Vincent Waller, Seth MacFarlane, Gendy Tartakovsky. Again, you've got some real pedigree in the writing room there.
Yeah.
So you wonder, and we've seen these names popping up in previous stuff we've looked at, and you wonder kind of what's gone wrong. And you've got to wonder whether it's the driving force, whether it's Dave Feiss, or whether it's Cartoon Network. But something has just we've got a writers' room of very capable people, and so they're not being allowed to produce the product that it needs to be.
This is all obviously summation on our part.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
To me, it feels very much like, and we talk about this a lot over on Mario as well, it feels a lot like the product of studio executives. It feels a lot like, do you know what? Ren and Stimpy was really popular, and those Nicktoons are really popular.
Make one
of them, yeah, because we've got Dexter's Lab and Powerpuff Girls and Johnny Bravo, but they're a different thing. So yeah, they're popular, but they're not those. So we want one of them. Do that. And that's what it feels like. It feels like they've been given a very specific brief, and the safety reins are on. It's give us one of them. And again, in doing that, what they've done is try and ape it and just turn everything up to 11.
Yeah.
And it's too much. This show is just too much, because what we've actually seen, we talked about Recess a couple of weeks ago, and what we've seen is that, other networks could very successfully ape the Nicktoon model. We talked about how similar Recess was to a Nicktoon, even though it was on Disney, but actually Recess was a complete success and was an excellent show, even in rewatching it.
Yeah.
So it can be done, but it's just the people involved need to understand the heart and soul of what makes that product good, and actually apply that in their own way. Recess looks and feels like a Nicktoon, but it isn't. It's still very much a Disney product.
Yeah.
And this hasn't done that. This hasn't taken that and successfully transplanted that kind of, because actually I would argue all day long that when it's good, the Cartoon Network stuff, the humor's far more sophisticated than it is on Nickelodeon. The writing may not be, but the gags are. When we talked about Johnny Bravo, it looks incredibly simplistic, but it's funny as hell. The gags are so slick, and Powerpuff Girls especially.
Yeah.
So when they nail it, and when they're working in their own style, like, it's very successful. But here, it just feels like a bad cover tune is the problem.
It does, and I mean, you touched on it for me there. You said you mentioned about things being heart and soul, and I think that's what's missing from this, is that you've got the characters, and the characterization of Charlie Adler is very good. He has very clearly set up 3 characters that he voices, and they all work very well. But the characters in the writing are so fucking bland a lot of the time.
They really are. Yeah.
There's nothing to latch onto. So then you've got Cow is just really fucking stupid and annoying. Chicken is overly cynical. But I said, well, what are we supposed to be drawn to? What are we supposed to gravitate towards? There's nothing in there that says, okay, well, Cow's stupid, but she's really sweet, or she's really affectionate, or she's really loyal. Chicken is very cynical, but actually, for the right person, he would actually bend over backwards to do what he needs to do. There's none of that. There's nothing that makes you say, okay, well, Chicken's a fundamentally sound dude.
Yeah.
You just think, well, he's a cunt.
And again, here's that comparison again, okay? But they so clearly are Ren and Stimpy. Okay, Cow is so clearly Stimpy, and Chicken is so clearly Ren. But again, the difference is that what makes Ren and Stimpy work is that fundamentally those 2 characters love each other a great deal and would die for each other. Like they kick the shit out of each other every week. Yeah,
well, it's that sibling thing, isn't it? Like, I will kick the fuck out of my brother. I'll see my brother call him all the bastards under the sun. Yeah. Anybody else fucking looks at him, and that's it. Better off.
And you're right, that's what's missing. There's that level of emotional connection between Ren and Stimpy that draws you in, that even when Ren is really off on one, like really, really off on one, in his heart of hearts, Stimpy's going to calm him down and bring him around. He's never going to, he would never allow anything actually bad to happen to Stimpy. And I think that's the difference, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. There's none of that. I mean, I'll rephrase it. The one episode, the milk farming episode, where Cow becomes Super Cow, you do get that, but I think that's the only example I can remember where she's like, "Oh, you can't do that to my brother," and she half cries and then turns into Super Cow, and then they turn it into a gag about the others being misaligned. And
but again,
any character work then goes out the window because it becomes a knob gag.
Yeah, and it's not just that; it's also that is an extreme situation, and it's motivated by the story.
Yes.
In that, okay, we have to wrap this up, so I have to become Super Cow and save my brother.
But it's not motivated by the character.
No, whereas in Ren and Stimpy, it's always very much about those two characters ultimately coming back to the fact that they love each other and would do anything for each other, and it's always motivated by the love that they have for each other. That's where the heart comes from in it.
Yeah.
You know, like, yes, absolutely, they would do the same thing for each other. They'd probably call Powdered Toast Man in and he would save the day or something. But ultimately, it's about the fact that deep down, neither of them actually wants to hurt the other themselves.
Yeah.
You know, there's and on an emotional level more than anything else. We're not talking physical danger here. We're talking about the two of them have that level of connection where, like, they can't bear to see the other one in any kind of distress. And that is absolutely what's missing here.
Yeah.
Because these are just two. I mean, this show is just pure anarchy. That's what it is. It is just anarchy.
And listen, we talked about Ren and Stimpy. We talked about it with Animaniacs. We've talked about it in various shows. But anarchy is fine, but you need character to underpin it.
Yes.
And here it's like you've got two very disparate characters who don't really fucking want to be together anyway.
No.
And it's just that they stick together because they're related and they have to, but actually they don't give a fuck anyway because they're far too self-involved. I know there's an argument that kids are like that anyway. I see that 23 out of 24 hours a day with my two. But, you know, there is a bond there, whereas here it just doesn't see. There just seems to be. It's more like they're sort of odd couple flatmates. I'm thinking about the one I was on earlier with it, where it's called Tongue Tied, and Cow's tongue breaks off and fucks off on the motorbike. It's like and same as you were talking earlier, when with your social group and the call and response and stuff like that. It's the sort of stupid shit you used to do, where it's like, you try to stick, somebody's watching TV, you stick a pencil in their ear, or you try and fuck with them. So it feels more like that. And if they played it as that rather than their brother and sister, and especially with such an age difference as well, if they played it like that, they'd have a far better grasp of those characters, because that seems more where they're coming from. Whereas actually, to say that it's a 7-year-old girl and an 11-year-old boy who don't really get on because their brother says, it doesn't work, it doesn't land. And I think that's the confusing part. And so I don't remember this from first time around. I remember it being a lot more more endearing than that. So I mean, in rewatching, I've been really disappointed and really frustrated and slightly pained. Just by the constant flashing and moving and just trying to keep up with stuff, because it's 7 minutes of fucking chaos.
It is, and I think you actually quite succinctly put over what I was trying to put over there as well. Is that yes, they're a cow and a chicken, which is more interesting to look at, and it's funnier because it's a cow and a chicken. But they're not really brother and sister. And there's no need for them to be brother and sister, because that has no real effect on their relationship or the show.
Yeah.
You know, they could just as easily, if you wanted to be brother and sister, they could be two human characters. And it could still be as anarchic. It just wouldn't look as weird, because they wouldn't be a cow and a chicken. Or they could be a cow and a chicken who own a fast food restaurant together, or who just live next door to each other.
There's a fucking story.
I mean, straight away, and that's just come straight off the top of my head. But you put them in that context, it gives you something to hang every episode off. It gives you something to hang your skits off. It gives you something to build your plot around, and it gives you a relationship between those two characters. Because then clearly, what you're going to have is Chicken's going to be the hard-nosed businessman who wants to succeed and make money, and Cow is just going to want to make the best food possible and keep fucking things up and be kind-hearted and stuff like that. So you have conflict between those characters, but ultimately they would be partners, so they would have to work together and work out their differences. So you have conflict and resolution. Whereas, again, that is missing here. We have an antagonist in the red guy, but there's very rarely any internal conflict between Cow and Chicken, other than Chicken's a fucking dickwad. That's about it, basically. Chicken is just a dick. That's his character. But you can't really generate conflict just because someone's a dick. No. Because you don't have an emotional connection to that. You just go, yeah, he's a fucking dick.
Yeah.
Like you do that in real life, you know?
More than anything else, you're just going to switch off.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm more interested in what food they're going to sell in this fucking fast food place.
Double meat, obviously. Like,
but then cow beef and chicken can't cook chicken. So are they both chefs and they're cooking the other one?
Why can't cow cook beef and why can't chicken cook chicken? Is this some sort of weird religious reason?
Well,
not that it's weird, by the way, listeners, not eating meat for religious reasons. You do you. I just mean in terms of my show. Oh yeah, but like we're talking about talking cows and chickens that have been birthed from humans. Like cannibalism is the least of our fucking worries here. Like,
Yeah,
all
you
right,
know what
then.
I mean.
Well,
It's good
let's say
logic.
they cook pork burgers then.
Okay,
You
fine.
know, and then
It was just one of those that after you started, my mind started wandering. I said,
I
well,
mean,
what are they going to eat?
I would go beef burgers and chicken burgers and double meat. But yeah, they could. It doesn't have to be a fast food joint. They could serve pork butts. They could open a pork butt restaurant. There you go. It's
Which I think,
barbecue joint.
yeah, I think that's
It's
what
barbecue joint.
yeah, I think that's what the butts and tatters are anyway. And I think they are pork thinking on it.
Well, I mean,
They look like pigs' arses. They've got a little curly tail.
well, no, pork butt is a thing. Pork butt is a meat that you can barbecue. But yeah, it's just because butts and tatters sounds like bums and titties. That's It's purely that. Let's not try and pretend it's not. All right. It's purely that they're eating asses and tits. That's it. That's the
Different
only
type
reason.
of show entirely.
That's the only reason they eat butts and tatters. That's it. This show isn't more intelligent than that. I'm sorry. I really wish it was,
Yeah, that's
but it's
disappointing.
not. You know, and look, that's fucking our level of humor. Who am I fucking kidding, right? But then I'd like to think we would at least pin that on something like the fast food restaurant, and that ultimately is what's missing for me. It's neither random and chaotic and different enough every week and charming enough to be something like Looney Tunes,
Yeah.
nor is it structured and emotionally invested and smart enough to be something like a Nicktoon or Ren and Stimpy. So it's kind of half of both and not as good as either.
Yeah.
And it fucking hurts me to look at. So
Yeah.
this one's a big fucking miss for me.
Yeah, I mean, I was disappointed. I mean, I came to this expecting more, and as I've sat down and watched this, I've watched like half a dozen of the sub episodes. I haven't been able to. I just haven't had time to do more than that, and it's been one of those. I've just gone, really, this isn't what I remember at all. And it's what I remember, but it's just not anywhere near what I thought it was. And I think that's disappointing. And I know we've had that before, but this one feels, because this was later and it had so much to draw on. I think this is probably a bigger miss than something like Raccoons, which was kind of its own thing. And I think certainly before it, there wasn't really anything to compare it to. Whereas this, you've had Ren and Stimpy and Animaniacs, and you've had the Nicktoons. You've even got the other Cartoon Network stuff that's on at the same time, which is infinitely better and infinitely smarter. And I think that's what disappoints, is that there's no reason for this to be as big a miss as it is.
No, I think I was more disappointed by Raccoons. That is still the most disappointing show we've done for me.
Yeah,
because I really remember that being better than it was.
And I remember that from multiple watches, because that was on. So I remember watching it on a Saturday morning. I think it was on early live and kicking, or maybe not going live. That's so fucking old I am. But they also re-showed it on BBC Two on like a weekday mornings. They went through space. They did that. They did Smurfs. They did a couple of things. So I would have been about 11 or 12 watching that for the second time and thinking, yeah, that's all right, actually. So then going back to it as a almost 40-year-old was fucking soul-destroying. Whereas this, I was more curious because I didn't remember enough about it, but I've still come out of it going, that's not what I thought it was.
That's the thing, isn't it? I think for me, I don't have that disappointment I have with Raccoons because, as I say, first time out, I was normally in a slightly altered state watching it. Normally for worse rather than for better. But even so, it was never something where it was like, if I happened to be out of bed, which generally meant I'd probably been spewing, so I really was in a state. If I happened to be out of bed to catch it, or I hadn't been to bed at all, that's the other possibility, then I would watch it. But it wasn't something like Raccoons, for instance. Yes, I was much younger then, but it's like, oh, Ace, it's Saturday, Raccoons is on, because I did used to fucking love it. And I never had that with this, but I was still aware of the cultural impact of it. And I say that, I don't think it did have that massive a cultural impact, other than, like I say, we had it as a call and response thing. But like, I specifically remember there being a really shit Cartoon Network racing game. I think it was on
PS2.
It was on one of the early PlayStation machines.
No, PS2.
And I remember Cow and Chicken being playable characters in that because that generated enough conversation again amongst my friend group. Like, oh, we should get this. We could be Cow and Chicken. I was like, no, because it looks shit. Like, I'll play Mario Kart, thanks.
Yeah, so you had Cartoon Network Racing, on the PS1. So Cow, Chicken, and the Red Guy were playable characters, and then in Cartoon Network Speedway on the PS2, Flem and Earl were also playable characters, as was Super Cow in that.
So it was the PS1 one that I was thinking of, I think, because I never had a PS2.
Yeah. But then they also popped up. I mean, they were quite. They popped up in other cartoons as well. They popped up in Ben 10. They popped up in something. I was reading earlier. Well, they pop up in a few places.
How the fuck do you fit these into Ben 10?
I don't know. Same as I Am Weasel popped up as well.
He had his own show, didn't he? Eventually.
Yes, eventually.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Cow makes a cameo in The Grim Adventures of Bill and Mandy, which I don't remember. That's it. Cartoon Network got their money's worth out of them. They put them in any fucking thing. I think. But even they finished.
Yeah, I mean, even so, when you compare it to the other shows that were on Cartoon Network at that time, they were fucking umpteen Powerpuff Girls games that I can remember. Most of them on the DS, most of them shit.
Yeah.
Some were good, most of them were shit. There was, I remember there being Powerpuff Girls comics, which we talked about. Dexter's Lab had all sorts of books and things like that. There was also games for Dexter's Lab. All of these were merchandise generators.
Yeah.
Whereas Cow and Chicken, I don't really remember seeing much. And now, honestly, outside of this podcast popping up on your feed, listeners, how many of you have honestly thought about Cow and Chicken in the last 5 years? Because I haven't. Until we thought about it when we put the list together, obviously, but we can't even remember which one of us put it down. We were probably just brain farting shows.
I'll take the blame on that one.
Probably just brain farting shows, and we went, oh yeah, Cow and Chicken, and then didn't think any more about it till it came time to do this episode.
Yes.
So I won't think about it again when we're done. What's that?
Yeah, what are we 5 years into this show?
Yeah, I mean, I think we would have put this on what we dubbed our season 2 list, though, or our phase 2 list. Yeah. So probably about 3 years ago, 2-3 years ago, we first put this onto our list, and that speaks volumes as well. But actually, it's taken us this long to get around to going. Oh yeah, Cow and Chicken.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the list isn't sort of available anywhere apart from on our Google Drive, but we are now getting to the end of our phase 2 list.
Yeah, and we will have to. Well, whether we'll actually take a break and start a phase 2 like we did last time, or whether we'll just. Yeah, we'll have that discussion off air. Yeah. But as always, you guys have been writing in as well. We've had a couple of suggestions in over the last few weeks, some of which I've never fucking heard of before. Yeah. But that doesn't mean to say we're not going to do them.
Yeah, we have to do some work.
Yeah, we may have to do some work. Well, we won't because we don't. But it's also generally this show kind of thrives on the fact that we're talking about these shows, and I've been a defender of this as our format in the past. We're talking about these shows in terms of the impact they had on us growing up, and the cultural impact is something we talk about a whole lot and things like that. So it would be a different kind of show for us to watch something fresh. That's not to say I'm not up for doing it, especially if it's something that's important to you guys out there, because ultimately we're doing this, we're doing this for ourselves because we enjoy it, but we're putting it out there for you guys to listen to. So if you want to hear us talk about something, even if we've never heard of it before, we'll give it a look. Just be prepared that maybe we might not like it. I don't know.
Yeah. And just be aware, if anybody suggests Doctor Who, it's not going to happen.
Look, I can't. I just don't like. I really don't like it. I really, really, really don't. And I know so many of you out there really do. And I'm sorry, it's just not for me. And you don't believe me. You don't want to listen to me rag on it for an hour straight. If you want to hear what that's like, just go and pick any random episode of Game of Moans and imagine that applied to your fandom. It won't be a fun time for any of us. Yeah. Maybe Mark can do that with someone else. If we can find somebody that really does like Doctor Who, maybe we do just. I don't know. I'll never say never, but if we were to do it, it would be at the bottom,
a very different show.
Bottom of our list, because I feel like I'd have to watch a fuck ton of it to be able to honestly give you an informed opinion, because everything I've seen I don't like, but I'd have to give it a fair crack of the whip, and there is so much of that to watch.
I think that there's not to go off too much of a tangent, there's a very different approach being taken as well in this iteration. So since 2005, compared to what you had in the sort of 40 years before. So again, there's very different ways of looking at it and trying to work a way to start and all that sort of shit. It's just not worth the effort, I don't think.
No, I think it's a show all on its own if we were to do it, which we have roughly talked around before. But again, it would be a very different show to this. So,
Yeah.
but look, having said that, nothing is out of bounds. Like I say, I'm not saying we would never do it. So if you do have something that you want to hear us talk about, ping it over. It doesn't matter if it's not 80s or 90s. If it's a new show, you know, I mean, we don't want to watch stuff that was done last year. Like we have to have a cut off somewhere around about the early 2000s, I think. Otherwise, it's not nostalgia. But we will, you know, genuinely look into these suggestions. Some of them we can do straight off the top of our head, so those will go on the list. And others, if they take a bit of research, we'll get around to them, guys. Just it'll be a while because we've got to actually research them, which is going to involve digging stuff out, watching them, finding it in some instances. You guys really do like some random shit, some of you.
Although I've been saying that, I mean, there's some proper mainstream stuff on our list as well that we can't get hold of.
Weirdly, the more random something tends to be, the easier it is to get hold of, albeit by slightly illegal means. But it is there. If it's not there legally, then what can you do? But we will always
try in theory, not do the episode.
We will always try and source something legally first, which is why many episodes have been bumped back as well. So there are actually some things that have been on the list that we might have tweeted out and said, we're doing this, give us your comments. And we've never got around to doing them. They haven't gone away. Anyway, we're now talking back of house at the end of the show because you've set me off on one. I'm fucking tired. It's my excuse for everything tonight. So whatever random alleyway you take me down, I'm just going to start talking. Let's wrap this and I'll go to bed. Yeah. let's do that.
I think we probably went off on such a big tangent because we've been quite clear on this for a while as to where we sit and what we think of this rewatch. I mean, as always, if people have different opinions, if we've missed something, please let us know. We're always up for the discussion anyway. Reach out to us on Twitter at SNPDpod, on Facebook and YouTube with the Double M Podcast Network, so seek us out on there. You can go to our website, ddpodcast.net, where you can also get our previous episodes and our other shows as well. Wherever you get your podcast from, be it iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, Apple, Amazon Music. Like, share, subscribe, leave us a message, we get back to you as best we can. But until next time.
And